Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on sort of re-socializing after a relationship with a malignant narcissist or a psychopath. We had a great comment by a viewer that basically said they can't believe that the narcissist is able to get over with this again and again and again. How can they continue to dupe people? How can they continue to con people and hurt people and get away with it? Why don't enough people confront them? Why don't people bite back? Basically was the comment. In that he made a comment, I think that maybe it was he or she, that if you kick a dog enough times, eventually they're going to bite back. And that is very true. You can, and that's a great profound comment, in that if you can take the sweetest, kindest dog, who is so sweet. Dogs have natural instincts, and they're very protective of their owners. If you've ever seen the cute videos of like puppies and babies, the owner, if they were to try to slap the baby, that the dog would go running to the baby's defense. So dogs are very protective. They're very keen. They're very protective of their owners. Where they'll bark or bite, at people who try to hurt their owners, or even like young children or babies, because they know that they are vulnerable. They need to be taken care of, So, you can take even the kindest, sweetest, tiniest or biggest of dogs, and, you can continue to hit them, but eventually they're going to bite back. As with dogs, if they bite, oftentimes if they bite somebody, they're going to have to be put to sleep. So, be very aware that if you have been habituated or kind of been socializing in this sort of negative fashion where it's always been bringing out the worst of you. You're always having to defend and justify yourself, explain yourself, be on the defensive, enter life with your dukes up, or always, now in a state of not trusting life, not trusting the positive, not trusting, others, not trusting yourself. You need to get into that self-experience where you're now saying, okay, now is the time for me to embrace and love myself 100%, all over. I love myself, and I love the fact that I can see clearly and love life. And that is enough. And so I'm going to now re-socialize in life in a new way, with new habits of being, seeing, feeling, communicating, and expressing. I'm, re-socializing because what I find is that, oftentimes people have a tendency to repeatedly attract violators and perpetrators. They can't, see that this is another abuser in a new car. This is basically the same abusive type of individual, but this guy now has, dark hair rather than blonde hair. This guy now is wearing a suit rather than, a farmer gear. Basically, this is the same violator and perpetrator who I am attracting into my life because I'm still living in that old role subconsciously. So you need to now realize, if this has been you're kind of like attracting these type of relationships again and again, or you're attracted to this. Begin to notice and understand that this type of person exists in life, and that it will be a similar sort of familiar relationship that you have with people. If you're always the underling, attracting the others from this hurt, vulnerable, sort of naive, perhaps perspective. Naive meaning I'm tolerating being abused. Because what I find also is that a lot of people have developed then a tolerance to being abused, where it's just part of life for them. They're just chronically mistreated. And there are some areas of the world where this goes on a horrific and prolific level. When we hear about some of the areas in China or India with the slave labor, or Africa where children are beaten, they are taken and forced from villages and to work in factories or in the fields, and they're not even able to grow, and they're mistreated or not fed. They're living in very depraved situations, living, working for pennies a day, if even that, is very horrific. And, they then tolerate this we and really just they can't see above it. They don't know beyond. And oftentimes, it's very sad. We can only hope and pray and begin to pray more that that these situations will be attended to, and that people will come to their rescue, because they really do need intervention. They do need rescue. They do need help. They need help where people can't help themselves. They need assistance. So it's like, people, this is life. This is the life, that we're living in currently. And so, realize if within yourself, in your own personal shoes, your own experience, if you have encountered this sort of, toleration of abuse. And then furthermore, your identity is now wrapped up in this, where your identity is your feeling, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Your I am is sort of caught up in this sort of damaged, hurt, shy, socially awkward, making a fool of oneself, or, with the wrong group of people, the wrong crowd, the wrong music, the wrong work, the wrong, perspective of yourself. It becomes time to say, I'm done. It's just like the, there's a lot of wonderful people who have, gone through, AA, and, they were once, alcoholic, and their life, like alcohol, basically the drink was drinking them, and their life was, out of control. It was really, and then they became free and sober, or clean and sober, and then they're living life on a whole new terms. They're no longer living through the sort of filter of alcohol. Alcohol is no longer an intermediary with which they're looking at life through. They're looking at life clean and sober. And oftentimes, their work habits continue. Their eating habits continue to improve. Their relationships improve. They begin having families where they couldn't have families before. They're no longer, staying up all night and, doing this and this. This is no longer attractive to them. They're like, this is not a good life. Like, this is not what fun is about. Like, throwing my life away is not enjoyable. So they have this aha moment, and then they begin to think for themselves. And they might be in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, but before, 60s, before they say, wow, like, I really need to think for myself. A lot of alcoholics, it happens to them at different times of the game. So it's almost, you have to realize that, you need to then see life through the lens of your own eyes and not through the eyes of the narcissist, because a narcissist or a malignant narcissist, a psychopath, tends to put their needs ahead of yours. So you're looking at life through their lens. Like, you're satisfying their needs before you can get to your life. Like, it becomes like a distorted perspective. So I would say, if this has been your case, begin to begin. That is, sometimes people do need to begin because they don't ever begin. You need to begin to now see life through your eyes and no longer habituated through that negative reflection or sort of negative lens, if you will, of interacting with life, and re-socialize from sort of narcissist-free, malignant narcissist-free, abuse-free, however you want to term it, but begin to now engage with life in that sort of, clean and clear perspective. And even if it's a little bit at a time, it doesn't mean you have to go out and all of a sudden I'm, this, that. It become a gradual and evolving process. But I think when you are able to see this and then sort of live from that boundary and that perspective of self-protection, and that you will no longer then tolerate the abuse or then furthermore attract the abuse. Is peace and harmony with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.